everybody. Welcome back to my MCU Tier List, the final part where I put the films we've gotten so far in Phase 4 of the MCU into their tiers. So, without further ado, let's go. So, we're going to start off with WandaVision, which I'm going to put in A tier. Rewatching this to make this video, rewatching WandaVision, I enjoyed it a lot more, I think, on the rewatch than I did when it was coming out, like a year ago. And I think that's because, like, I think taking it and watching it removed from, like, having to wait weeks between episode, or a week between episode, and having to, all the speculation and, all of that stuff. I think removing it from all of that, I think you get to kind of just experience it for what it is, and because, like, a lot of, I think what kind of brought it down when it was first coming out was all the theories about what was going on, and the show not really living up to what those theories were, like, everybody thought it was going to bring in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and all this multiverse stuff, and everybody was going crazy about Evan Peters' Quicksilver being in it, and it ended up kind of, being disappointing when none of that stuff happened here. And so I think that's kind of what pulled it down when it was first coming out. But watching it now, away from all of that, you get to kind of just experience it for what it is, and it's this really cool thing that I think they just did a great job, and it's awesome that this kind of thing exists now in the MCU, that they were able to do this, like, whole thing with the sitcoms. Like, I think they used that very well. Like, I think one moment in the series that kind of shows how they use sitcom stuff well is when Vision is confronting Wanda at towards the end of the 5th episode, and she tries to roll the credits on him to kind of get away from the conversation to try to just end the episode. And I thought that's one moment that I think really just shows how well they use the sitcom format to kind of, like, tell it, for, like, interesting storytelling. Because, like, you just have the credits rolling on the screen with, like, the background theme music for it, but you still have Vision and Wanda arguing about, her controlling controlling a whole town, just to be with Vision. So I think that moment just really, again, shows how fun the use of the sitcom stuff is that they use on the show. I think the mystery of what's going on was done pretty well. Of course, again, watching it when it was first coming out, there was it created, like, a situation where there was a lot of speculation that created, like, really high expectations for what the end result was going to be, and what the end result ended up being kind of fell a little bit flat, seeing it for the first time. But again, seeing it now away from all that, taking it for what it is, I think it's great. It shows the Wanda and Vision relationship very well. I think the ending of it, when she takes down the Hex in their final moment together, I think is done so well. Of course, the line in the 8th episode when they're going through Wanda's memories, and we see the one that takes place after Age of Ultron, and Vision says,
"But what is grief, if not love persevering?"
I mean, come on, that is a great line, and it's amazing that this show gave that line to us. It's just amazing, and yeah, I think the show is great, and it, although it didn't do all the multiverse stuff that we wanted it to, it still sets up kind of what's going to happen in Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness. So we're going to get the multiverse stuff there. And I think also, since we already got some multiverse stuff in No Way Home, and we know we're going to get it into the Multiverse of Madness, the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I think it kind of makes it now more okay that they didn't do that here, because we've now gotten to a point where we've gotten some of it already. Still, the Ralph Boner thing, making Evan Peters Quicksilver turn out to just be Ralph Boner, to turn it into a boner joke, I'm still not okay with that. That is just, come on, guys. Like, really? Like, to not only be like, oh, it wasn't actually Quicksilver from X-Men, we're not actually doing that, to not only just do that, but to go a step further and make it a boner joke. Like, come on, guys. Like, I'm sorry, but that was just a terrible idea. I feel like they can still salvage that a bit, though, if they, kind of make it so it actually was X-Men Quicksilver, and the Ralph Boner thing was just his character in the sitcom world, because that is kind of like a sitcom joke to make, so, I think they can still turn that into, they could fix their mistake there, and maybe that was what they were trying to do all along. But yeah, as it is now, it's just like, come on, guys, like, make a boner joke out of this. Yeah, that's kind of my only thing that I'm still kind of not okay with the show, but everything else that I may have kind of complained about, or not liked as much when it was first coming out, I'm kind of over now, because, again, we've kind of gotten some multiverse stuff, and I think taking it for what it is, it's a great thing that I'm very excited exists. I'm happy that it exists in the MCU, that it is such a different thing, the whole sitcom thing. Like, it's just such a different thing inside of it. Again, it goes in A tier, but I'm going to move on and talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I'm going to put in B tier. So I think that this is kind of a classic B tier kind of scenario, at least kind of like what I'm using B tier as, is something that I enjoy a lot, that I think has a lot of stuff that I think it does right, but just the story level, it just does some, weird, funky things with it that is just like, you had some good stuff, but you just kind of dropped the ball in some other areas that I think kind of, made it something that is just a fun show that does a lot of things that I enjoy from it, but it's just a disjointed kind of thing because of the choices they make. Because, like, I'll start off just talking about the stuff that I enjoyed. I think the Sam and Bucky relationship, banter, their interactions is great. That was something that I really wanted from this show, and they delivered on it. I think the John Walker plotline was done pretty well, although it does seem like the show is kind of confused on how, like, I'm kind of not sure how the show wants us to feel about John Walker, because it's like, he's introduced and you're kind of like, not the right guy to be Captain America. But then they kind of try to get us to sympathize with him a bit at the beginning of the second episode, but by the end of that episode, he's a jerk again, and he just kind of like goes back and forth between being a jerk and then kind of being a character you sympathize with, but then just being a jerk again. But then he gets his redemptive moment in the final episode, so I'm not really sure how the show wants us to feel. I kind of think on rewatch, it's kind of the same thing with WandaVision, where I think I like it a little bit better, seeing it in its entirety, because I kind of get a little bit what they were going for a little bit more. I still feel like, again, it's like, how do you want us to feel about him? Like, I don't really know that much, but I think I kind of see it a little bit better. Like, I think ultimately they want us to kind of feel sorry for him, but also be like, not really on his side with anything. Like, you kind of are like, he's kind of just in this bad situation, but he's also doesn't make the greatest choices, so you're kind of supposed to have a complicated relationship with him. It's just still kind of weird how they're handled them a bit. But overall, I enjoyed the John Walker thing. I think they explored kind of the ideas of race well. Also, of course, with Sam as a black man becoming Captain America, struggling with kind of that idea. I think they explore that very well. And also, of course, with the Isaiah Bradley stuff, they just explore, with both of their characters, they explore the whole race thing well. the race aspect of Sam Wilson becoming Captain America and the issues he's kind of having with that. School seeing Dora Milaje again, and exploring like Bucky's struggling with his past as the Winter Soldier and trying to make amends with that. That's another thing they explore very well. And it's just like a bunch of like the subplots that they have going on are explored, I think, much better than kind of the main plot, which is the Flag Smasher stuff. The Flag Smashers just aren't really that great of villains because it's kind of the same thing with John Walker, where it's like, I'm confused on how the show wants us to feel about them because they make them, the villains of the show, but you're supposed to sympathize with them, and it's like, I think they're trying to do this idea where you're sympathizing with the villains, but it's like they kind of take it a bit too far, where you're kind of expected at times to be on their side, and it's like, well, no, they're terrorists. Like, I don't care that they're trying to do something that might be right. It's just, come on, like, they're killing people. Like, we're not, like, how are you trying to get us to be on their side? They're supposed to be the villains of the show. Like, it's just kind of weird how they handle them. And the whole Sharon Carter being the power broker thing is like, what are they doing? That is a terrible idea. Like, I just don't get what their thought process was. It just doesn't work on so many levels because it's like, number one, it's not even a good reveal. Like, I mean, come on. Like, it's not a good reveal at all. It's quite obvious from the third episode that she's the power broker. There's really just, it's not even like a red herring or anything. It's just like, yeah, obviously, like, there's a power broker, there's a mystery of who it is, and Sharon Carter shows up. She's the only candidate to be the power broker. Like, it's either she's the power broker, or the reveal of who the power broker is doesn't hold any weight. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just something that it's just like, yeah, it's obviously her, but then it doesn't really even make sense that it's her based on the stuff we've seen her do before with her character in the MCU. It's just like, why would she become the power broker? It just doesn't sit right with me that Sharon would do that. So it's just a weird choice to make Sharon Carter the power broker, and to handle it so poorly. It was just weird what they did with that. So, even though there's a lot of stuff that I enjoy from this show, the Sam and Bucky stuff, the race, the race discussion, and Bucky trying to make amends for his past as the Winter Soldier, and the John Walker stuff. While there's a lot of stuff here that I enjoy, the kind of main storyline in it, dealing with the Flag Smashers and the Power Broker, it just doesn't work for me. It's just like, you don't know how you're supposed to feel about the Flag Smashers, and Sharon being the Power Broker is an obvious thing that's supposed to be a reveal, but is quite obvious, but also doesn't make sense at the same time. It's just, yeah. So that's why I put this at B tier. It's a good show. A lot of stuff I enjoy, but just some main stuff that they just kind of dropped the ball with. So it comes in at B tier. But we'll talk about Loki now, which is going in A tier. When it first came out, it was definitely my favorite Disney Plus show, I think. Since then, Hawkeye has taken that spot. But when it first came out, I mean, this was definitely my favorite, I think. Whereas WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of had some problems with the structure of the story, kind of, with WandaVision not really being able to pay things off as well as people thought it was going to pay it off, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier is kind of having problems with how you're supposed to feel about the villains and stuff. With Loki, I think it structures itself well, and I think, the idea of the TVA being presented at first as, this thing that is, trying to protect the timeline, the universe from kind of breaking out into chaos, but eventually kind of being revealed as this thing that's kind of taking away people's free will and maybe isn't the best thing that should be, should exist. I think that idea, the exploration of, of free will, that discussion is interesting. Loki and Sylvie, definitely, it's definitely a weird thing. Like, on the one hand, I'm like, okay, they are cute together, but on the other hand, it's like, what is this exactly? They're the same person, but they're falling in love. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this. But I think that's kind of part of it. Is it's kind of supposed to be this weird thing that I think ultimately may, fall through, and it may actually end up being presented to us as this mistake, as this weird thing, even though at this point it's kind of being presented as, this heartwarming relationship in the show. So I feel like down the line in season 2 is going to be kind of reinterpreted, represented to us as this kind of weird thing that's going on. I think that's kind of just, the whole show is kind of, exploring the idea of variance and the multiverse and, splitting the timeline and the weird things that come with that. So, I think down the line, maybe the whole Loki and Sylvie thing may not, may be presented to us in a weirder way later on. But then Mobius, he's great. Owen Wilson's finally in the MCU. He doesn't say wow at any point. He says how at one point.
How?
Hopefully we get a wow in season 2. That would be great. But yeah, I mean, Mobius is a great character. I think that's one thing. I mean, one of my favorite things about this show is Loki and Mobius's interactions, their banter, their friendship. It's great. It's fun to see. I think that's one thing that makes episode 2 one of my favorite episodes of the show. Is you just get so much of Loki and Mobius's banter, and it's kind of the one where they're working together the most, just kind of doing the investigation stuff of the variant of Sylvie, which we eventually find out it's Sylvie, messing up the timeline. I just think that is so great, their interactions. And I think that this is definitely a show that is gonna have major repercussions on the MCU. It kind of already is starting to, I think, a little bit, with kind of No Way Home and Into the Multiverse of Madness. I think it kind of set up how that kind of stuff is possible. And of course, King is introduced in the final episode, as he who remains, kind of pulling the strings behind the TVA, and he'll of course be an Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So it's definitely going to be something that's going to have major repercussions on the rest of the MCU, and I'm very excited for season 2 of this. I don't know when it's coming out, maybe later this year, maybe next year. Whenever it comes out, I'm going to be very excited to see this. I think they leave it on a really good cliffhanger of, Sylvie killing He Who Remains, but then another version of him, I guess, rising to power and creating a new TVA that Loki is now in, and he has to, fix that because now Mobius doesn't know who he is, and so it's going to be interesting to see where season 2 goes with all of that. And yeah, overall, this show is great. At one point, it was my favorite Disney Plus show. And yeah, I think they just do so much with this that I just really enjoy. But now we'll move on to Black Widow, which I'm going to put in B tier. It's something I wanted to enjoy more than I actually did. Again, it's kind of like the same thing, like I said, with a lot of the other B tier movies, as it's it does a lot of stuff that I enjoy, but just kind of with the main plot line, it's just kind of funky with the way they do it. So, it's something that, again, there's a lot of stuff I enjoy. I love seeing Black Widow in the lead, Yelena, introducing her, that's great. Alexei, Red Guardian, hilarious. And I think the whole thing with the, this family, Black Widow's family is done, their dynamic is done very well. Again, a ton of stuff here I enjoy so much. But just, like, the main thing, I mean, like, Taskmaster. They really dropped the ball on that one. Like, Taskmaster could be like this really cool villain, with this idea of being able to, observe his opponent's, fighting pattern and using that to kind of like, counteract their actions or kind of, match their fighting pattern. That's such a great idea. That could be used for such a great villain, and instead it's just the mindless henchman of the main villain. It's just, and like they try to do this thing to kind of give him like an emotional weight to it, where it's his daughter that Black Widow thought she killed, all the years later that she's guilty about now. But she had to do it to, get out of the whole assassin thing. They try to give it some emotional weight in that, but it's just like, but you messed up Taskmaster. Like, that could have been such a cool thing, and you just used, like, you could have just, like, done this idea, just not made it Taskmaster. Like, Taskmaster could be this thing, again, that could be used like for this really interesting storyline, but instead you just made her a mindless henchman. It's just it was just I that was disappointing. And she's not even used that much in the movie. Like, she's there for the bridge scene where she's introduced. Then there's the whole car chase after we meet Yelena, and then she's not there at all until the final battle where it's revealed that she's actually some mindless henchman, and it's again, yeah, just disappointing use of the character. And then just like with the final battle, just when it gets to her, like, when it gets to this headquarters floating in the clouds in the sky, and then it explodes and Black Widow's falling down to Earth, landing on various pieces of debris, fighting Taskmaster. Just like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't have to do this much for a Black Widow movie. I mean, the whole entire movie before that was, low scale and, kind of, realistic, fight scenes. It kind of felt like a Jason Bourne movie, and I think that worked very well. And then you get to the end, and she's falling through the sky, and it's this crazy big spectacle, and it's just like, it just doesn't work for this movie. This movie just didn't earn that kind of third act, and so it was just a weird choice to make, and they just didn't need to do that for a Black Widow movie. Like, I don't think anybody, like, I think if they just did a low scale, just infiltrating this building, and even just, you could even just have the building, like, coming apart as she's fighting. Like, you didn't have to do this crazy headquarters in the sky exploding and falling through the sky. It's just, yeah. So, again, a lot of stuff I enjoy here. Yelena, Alexei, the family dynamic, done very well. But it just got crazy with the third act, and then disappointing use of Taskmasters. It just brings the movie down for me, and it just puts a movie that I would have loved to have put in A tier. It drags it down to B tier. So, I'm sorry, but I have to put in B tier. But now we'll move on to What If, which I'm going to put in A tier. I think that this is such a great idea that I'm so happy exists in the MCU. This idea of just exploring these alternate realities. What if this one thing changed and Peggy Carter was, got the super soldier serum, or T'Challa was Star-Lord, or we had this zombie apocalypse that the Avengers had to fight. I think that is an awesome idea, and while some of the episodes were hit or miss, some episodes I enjoyed a lot, like the Doctor Strange episode, and some kind of fell flat a little bit for me. I'm trying to think of what all the episodes were right now. Just there were episodes that I think I still think about a lot to this day, and some that I've kind of even forgotten were in this show. So yeah, they were hit or miss. Some, again, I enjoyed very, very much.
Very, very much.
Some, again, fell flat. They didn't really explore stuff that I was particularly interested in a way that I was particularly interested in. But I enjoyed that they kind of, at the end of it, they kind of had everything, you know, converge, and like they kind of connected all of the episodes together, where for most of the season it was kind of, oh, let's see this change, oh, see this universe, oh, we'll go to this universe this episode, oh, we'll go to this universe, and there wasn't any real connections between episodes. By the end of it, when you have the whole Ultron, you know, Ultron thing going on, and they have to, the Watcher has to get all of the heroes from the multiverse from the previous episodes together to fight this Ultron, this version of Ultron. I thought that was very cool, and I like that they kind of like gave the Watcher a bit of a character arc, where at first he's like, I cannot, for any reason, interfere with the timeline, what the universe is. I'm just watching what is happening. I cannot at all interfere with this. And I think that's shown a lot in the fourth episode of Doctor Strange one, which I think is one thing that makes it one of my favorites among many things that makes it one of my favorites. Is you really see for the first time the Watcher interact with a character in that universe, and you see a situation where the Watcher could interfere and, save Doctor Strange's universe, but instead, he's like, I cannot interfere. I'm just watching this. And, of course, then by the end of the season, he has to interfere and bring all of the heroes from the other universes together to fight Ultron, and breaks his rule. And so I like that they kind of, gave him that arc throughout it, where it wasn't just, we're just watching these different scenarios happening, and the Watcher's just watching it, and that's just how it is. It's like, no, you actually gave the Watcher this character arc where he learns to, there are times where he should interfere with what is happening. So, I like that. And, yeah, overall, this was a ton of fun. I think that, I'm hoping that we're going to get some kind of things where this is kind of going to cross over into the actual MCU. We'll get like live action versions of these characters. It already seems like we're going to kind of get a version of Supreme Doctor Strange in the fourth episode, being in Into the Multiverse of Madness from the trailer we got.
Things just got out of hand.
That's interesting that maybe we're starting to get some of this already, some kind of, intertwining this with the MCU a little bit. That would be very cool, especially if, what I want to see is Captain Carter, a live-action version of her in the MCU. I think that would be so cool to see. And there's a ton of other stuff I would love to see from this, kind of, bring it into the MCU. That would be exciting. So, yeah, overall, this is a ton of fun. It does a good job kind of telling these individual stories, but then connecting them at the end. I think that was a really great format they used. And this is getting a season 2, which I'm excited for the sole purpose of seeing more of these scenarios. I think they really just got me on board with this idea, and I can't wait to see season 2 and what other ideas they come up with. And maybe how the Watcher, maybe he'll start to interfere a little bit more in season 2 now that he did at the end, or if he'll kind of go back to his kind of just watching kind of, you know, deal. So that's gonna be exciting to see. And yeah, I think this is something that definitely goes in A tier because I enjoy it a lot, and it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun, and it goes in A tier. But we'll move on to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which I'll also put in A tier. And this is something that it was very surprising how much I enjoyed this movie. Actually, like I wasn't really expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I think it just did a good job at introducing us to the character of Shang-Chi and how just fun of a character he is, and I love the interactions he has with Katie, Aquafina's character. I think their relationship was great. I think it was cool to finally see the actual Mandarin. I think he was a great villain. Wen Wu, his father, Shang-Chi's father. I think he was a great villain. I think you kind of understood where he was coming from, and you know, how he was being deceived by, that dragon creature from behind the wall. He thought was his dead wife behind there, but it was actually, again, the dragon creature thing. So I thought that was an interesting way of doing it, and giving him kind of like a redemptive moment at the end where he gives up the rings. He gives the rings to Shang-Chi, which the rings, by the way, are a really cool new weapon in the MCU that I think they just do such a good job with, kind of incorporating them into the fight scenes that they're used in. I think just the way they move and just the way they're used in combat is very cool. And it's something that it's a new, like, there's really no other weapon in really anything else that acts this way, where there's just these 10 rings that are on his arm and they can control them and move them around. Like, there's really nothing else like that. And so I think they just did a good job at creating the different uses for them, and they're definitely a thing I'm excited to see more of, in future Shang-Chi stuff. And they're, based on the post-credit scene, or the mid-credit scene, which has Wong in it. Actually, Wong appears a few times here, which I thought that was great. I've got to see some more of Wong. Wong is, of course, great, and he's apparently the Sorcerer Supreme, according to No Way Home. So that's cool. But yeah, cool to see Wong here, and apparently the 10 rings are a little bit more important than we first were led to believe. They're sending a signal out somewhere, so something's up with them. They're going to become very, very important in the MCU, I think, and yeah, I think the 10 rings, great new addition, and yeah, I think this movie's a ton of fun. The action sequences are great. Like, I think all of them are memorable to me. I just had a ton of fun with this movie, especially rewatching it. I think it's a great movie, and it's cool that we get to see the fake Mandarin from Iron Man 3, Trevor. He was hilarious. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. This movie does such a good job with pretty much everything it does, so I really enjoyed it. Surprisingly, a lot more than I thought I was going to. So, yeah, definitely comes in A tier. But now move on to the Eternals, which I'm going to put in B tier. I think this movie gets a little bit too much hate, but at the same time, it just does a lot of things very weird. I will say that although some people have kind of complained about kind of like how kind of cluttered it is with having to introduce the new 10 Eternals, 10 new characters in this movie, and not really having enough time to really develop them. I think that They do a good job for the amount of time they had. I think one of the things that I was kind of surprised about the first time I watched it was how they were able to kind of get me invested in each of them, even though we got such a short time with them. With some of them, like Fastos. We really don't get introduced to him until the end, towards the end of the movie, but I was quite invested in his character, even though, again, we got a little, such a little time with him. I think the flashbacks kind of helped with that, because we kind of got to see him earlier in the movie through the flashbacks, so I think that kind of helped with that a bit. But yeah, like, even Fastos, the character that doesn't get introduced to us in the present until the end, uh, I still was invested in his character. And I think that's kind of how it is for all of them. I think, we got, we didn't get much time with them, but I was still invested in their characters, surprisingly. So, that was something that I think people have criticized about the movie that I actually kind of thought they did surprisingly well. And I think the idea of, the Eternals being created to kind of increase Earth's population and not interfere with that, with their advancements, just kind of increasing the population, making sure the deviants don't kill them, and, the true reason for them being there is so that the Earth's population can grow large enough for Celestial to be born and, destroy the Earth with it, but being able to create more galaxies, um, you know, after. And I think that idea is interesting, especially like the idea that Thanos' snap delayed that. I think that was a cool detail, but I think just the fact that there's so much of a debate in the movie as to whether or not to save Earth or not is like, I mean, it's not that it's like completely not understandable. Like, okay, I mean, there is a bit of a debate there where it's like, yeah, I mean, we're gonna save Earth, but we're going to prevent, the creation of other galaxies by killing the Celestial. But it's like, yeah, but you, this is a superhero movie. Most of the time in a superhero movie, you're gonna want to, you know, save Earth, and even like, that's the whole reason why Thanos was wrong. Like, that's the whole reason why he's presented as a bad guy is because, like, yeah, you know, killing half the universe is going to allow the other half to thrive, but you're also killing half of the universe. Like, it's wrong to kill people, to let people be killed, and so it's, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe objectively for the greater good, more life will be created with the sacrifice of the people of Earth, but it's like, the sacrifice of the people of Earth, it's, generally in a superhero movie, you're not supposed to be on the side of sacrificing the people of Earth. You're just generally not supposed to be on that side, so, it kind of just feels like they're focusing too much on that debate, where I feel like they should have kind of made it more clear that, even like after they, stop the emergence, kill a Celestial as being born, it's like, even after that, they're like, I don't know if we did the right thing. I think we should have saved humanity. It's like, yes, of course you should have saved humanity. It's just weird. And it's just weird how they have Kingo. He's there for all of the movie, but then he's in the third act. He's like, I love humanity, but I'm gonna let them all die because we gotta let the Celestial be born. It's like, okay, like, again, like, yeah, okay. It is kind of interesting to see that some of the Eternals have a different view on this than others. But it's like, for the whole movie, I kind of liked Kingo, but now I can't because he turned his back and didn't help them save humanity. It's like, And then it's like weird how he's just, because of that, he's just not there for the third act. It's like, oh, okay, he's just not there for the final battle. Like, usually in that scenario, you're gonna have him come back during the final battle and be like, I changed my mind. I'm gonna help you guys. And it'll be this triumphant moment where, it'll look like all hope is lost, but then he'll return. But it's like, no, that doesn't happen. He just doesn't come back for the final battle. He's just not there. And then afterwards, he's like, well, you guys did it. And it's like, dude, I liked you for the entire movie. You were a great character, but then you turned your back and you were like, I'm not gonna save humanity. It's like, come on. It's just weird. It's just a weird choice to have this debate in a superhero movie about saving humanity and not have the heroes, even at the end of the movie, think they did the right thing. Like, come on. We also got Harry Styles in the MCU. That's cool. That's a thing now, and he's Thanos' brother, which is hilarious. Like, it kind of makes it. It kind of makes you kind of understand Thanos a little bit more. Like, all right, I kind of get why you're kind of a psychopath now. Your brother is Harry Styles. Your brother looks like Harry Styles, and you look like a grape. So overall, I enjoy this movie, and I think it gets a little bit too much hate, but at the same time, it does some weird things with the debate about whether or not to save humanity. So, I think it's a B tier film, and now I'll move on to Hawkeye, which is going in A tier. I think I mentioned this before, this is, at this point, my favorite of the Disney Plus shows. I think it does the Disney Plus format the best. I think it fits it the best. I think, the scale of the threat is kind of, the level it should be for a streaming show. Whereas some of the other Disney Plus shows kind of try to do this big universe-changing story in a Disney Plus show. I think this one kind of made it a little smaller scale, and it focused a lot more on the interactions between the characters than really the threat of the show. So like, we get introduced to Kate Bishop, and her interactions with Clint are amazing. Like, Kate Bishop is great, and they just have such good chemistry together. It's just, all their interactions are amazing, and yeah, I can't wait to see more of that in the MCU, more of Kate Bishop. Again, she is great, and I think they do, in the opening of the first episode, they do kind of her origin well, of, seeing Hawkeye, fighting in the Battle of New York. Even, like, the way they set up the Battle of New York, like, doesn't just start up in the Battle of New York. It starts up, her parents are arguing, she's kind of eavesdropping, she talks to her father, she talks to her mother, she goes up to play checkers, and we see an alien, a Chitauri, fly by. And then we see a few more fly by. And immediately you're like, oh, we're in the Battle of New York now. It's happening. And I think it was cool to see, like, the point of view of it from a civilian's point of view. Because we've really only seen it from the point of view of the Avengers fighting them. And we haven't really gone back to that to kind of see what did this look like from just the citizens' point of view. And we get to see that here, and we get to see that, why Kate Bishop wants to be, takes up archery and wants to be new Hawkeyes, because she sees Hawkeye fighting the aliens. Kind of the only person that has ever seen Hawkeye and is like, that's who I want to be when fighting aliens. She could have seen Iron Man, she could have seen Thor and been like, that's the powers I want to have. But no, she just wants to be able to shoot a bow and arrow well. But, okay, all kidding aside, though, it is cool that they kind of give Hawkeye some appreciation. I feel like he's kind of been the butt end of the joke a lot of the time. Like, oh, he could just shoot a bow and arrow well, and he's fighting aliens. They even like make that joke in Age of Ultron where he's like, we're fighting a bunch of robots, the city's flying, and I have bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. And I think that it's cool to kind of give him some appreciation here where somebody actually is looking up to him and, you know, he actually becomes her role model, and that's what inspires her to take up archery. And I think that was cool. They kind of had that moment, because I think I like that they kind of played it as like, you know, this person who doesn't have any powers, just, you know, can shoot a bow and arrow well, is up there fighting aliens, and that inspires her. And they kind of, you know, played it as an inspiring thing and not like a joke thing again, like they have before with like he has a bow and arrow and he's fighting aliens and robots and stuff. Like that's ridiculous. But it's like no, it's cool. He only has that, but he has the heart to fight them, even though he knows he doesn't really stand a chance against them. So I like they play it in that way. And so moving on to Jack. He's great. Like I love that they introduce him as this character that you're just kind of immediately like, oh, he's obviously secretly a villain. Like that's what the twist is going to be. He's actually behind it all. He's actually evil. But it's like, no, no, they don't do that. They actually, he's good. He's innocent. He's a good person. He's helping in the final battle with his sword. And, I mean, I just love that they did that. That they, you know, used him as a red herring in that way. I thought that was done amazingly well. Then, of course, the more serious side, you know, the show really explores Clint's past as Ronin and trying to, you know, come to terms with that, and also Natasha's death is a big part of this. You know, especially when you get, you know, Yelena here, which is awesome that we get Yelena, and that scene where, you know, with the mac and cheese when she's talking to Kate Bishop in her apartment is hilarious, and it's like, it's cool how, like, at the end of the 4th episode, you see, like, the assassin side of her, but then once you see her in the 5th episode, again, you see the hilarious, you know, charismatic side of her that we all loved from Black Widow. So, I thought that was really cool that they had her, and immediately, like, her and Kate Bishop's interactions are great, and I'm very excited to see more of that as the MCU goes forward. And it's cool that, like, they're gonna be the new Black Widow and Hawkeye, and they have such great interactions. So it's cool that we're kind of getting the, you know, Black Widow Hawkeye team again. Just with, instead of Clint and Natasha, it's now Kate and Yelena. So that's very cool. Very excited to see that. Very hilarious. But yeah, so Natasha's death is treated very, very well here. Very serious. Where it kind of wasn't addressed prior in the MCU. Like a lot of people have complained in Endgame, Natasha didn't get a funeral, and so this is kind of where we kind of get her, you know, kind of address her death and the true effects of that, both with, again, Clint and Yelena. That moment where he does the whistle. That is so, like, it's like, oh, he knows the whistle. He knows the whistle. It's great. It's sad, but it's great. And so I think this show just really does, pretty much everything well. I think the only thing it kind of falls flat with is the Kingpin thing at the end, where they kind of just introduce him at the end of the 5th episode, and, you know, it's kind of just like, oh, we're finally getting Kingpin in the MCU, and it's the same actor from Daredevil. So it's kind of, you know, it's kind of like that's the gimmick of it, where it just kind of doesn't feel earned as much. You know, I feel like they could have done that a little bit better. You know, like introducing him earlier and having him kind of be the overarching villain. We're just kind of like, oh yeah, he was the overarching villain of the series. He was pulling the strings the whole time. It's like, okay, of course you have Clint every once in a while being like, oh, the big guy's gonna get involved, and it's like, who's the big guy? But everybody kind of knows who the big guy is. It's gonna be Kingpin. That's kind of what everybody predicted. And it's cool that it comes true, but it's also like it's just kind of thrown in there at the end. Just to kind of be a cool thing of like, oh, we finally got Kingpin from Daredevil. Now Daredevil is, I guess, now canon in the MCU. Especially for a little bit more with the next movie I'm going to talk about. But yeah, I think even though the Kingpin thing the Kingpin thing, even though the Kingpin thing, even though the Kingpin thing, even though the even though the Kingpin thing, may have not been handled the best. Everything else in this show I think was done great, and even the thing with the LARPers, I think that was fun. That they're introduced in the second episode, and you kind of feel like it's going to be this like throwaway thing, like, oh, it's cool. We get to see Clint LARPing, like that's kind of a fun concept, a funny concept. But no, they come back later on and help them, and it's like, oh, they're teaming up with LARPers. Like that's a fun concept. And so, yeah, this show is great. Easily one of my favorite Disney Plus. Easily my favorite Disney Plus show. It's also a Christmas show. I forgot to mention that. It's a Christmas show.
It's just some Christmas.
It's a Christmas special in the MCU, which I thought that was a really cool addition to it, to make it a Christmas show, and have the whole thing be Clint trying to get home for Christmas. And I'm so happy he does. I was a little bit nervous at a few points that they were gonna kill him off. That the thing was going to be he couldn't get home for Christmas, and Kate was gonna have to go and tell them that he died. But luckily, he survives and makes it home for Christmas. And yeah, I think that was a great thing they did there. Also, Rogers the Musical. I think Rogers the Musical is a really funny idea, so I'm glad that they kind of showed that in this show. But yeah, so overall, the show is great. My favorite Disney Plus Marvel show so far. And yeah, but now I'm gonna move on to Spider-Man No Way Home, which of course is going in S tier. Because, I mean, come on, it is definitely an S tier film. It does, again, fan service amazingly. I'm just gonna cut right to it. Tobey and Andrew, that is so insane that they are in this movie. It is just so fun. I think that moment where they come through the portals is one of the best moments ever, where you're just like, I'll admit the whole thing with Ned, that's kind of my only complaint about the movie, is Ned, all of a sudden having sorcery powers, being able to open portals. Like, really? You just kind of were doing that? That you kind of threw that in there just to kind of have this moment, just kind of have this moment where they come through the portals. But Doctor Strange at that point is dangling over the Grand Canyon, so you can't have him do it, so we'll just have Ned do it, because why not? So I'm kind of iffy about that idea that Ned all of a sudden can do sorcery, but whatever. It's still cool that, that's how Tobey and Andrew are introduced. They're looking for Peter, the portal opens, you see a Spider-Man out there, you think at first that it's Tom Holland Spider-Man, but then as he comes closer, you start to realize the suit is looking different. This is not Tom's suit, and then you realize it's Andrew's suit, and then he takes off the mask, and it's Andrew Garfield, and that's just awesome. And then, of course, after that, they try again, and we get Tobey Maguire. It's just so great that we got this. It's just, as somebody who grew up with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, it's just so cool to see them return again, get some more time with these characters. I really hope this leads to, more things with them. I know there's all this rumors about, them saying, all three Spider-Man actors saying that they loved working together and they would love to work together again. And this whole thing, the hashtag make TASM 3, make the Amazing Spider-Man 3. So I really hope this leads to something where we get to see more of Tobey and Andrew, even if it's not in their own movies, even if it's just, with Tom Holland, Spider-Man, just kind of in some multiverse movies. Even if we just get them for a little bit in those movies, I just love to see more of them because they're great. And I think from the moment they show up in that portal scene, they just immediately, I mean, the movie just becomes about their interactions with Tom Holland's Peter. Like, that's just how the rest of the movie goes. And I just love that they don't just have them kind of pop in and then pop out, pop in for the final battle and just peace out at the end. It's like, no, like, they actually have a ton of interactions with each other, with Tom Holland's Peter. You get some moments that are just Tobey and Andrew interacting, just outside of, any of the MCU Spider-Man characters. It's just them talking, and I just love that they, they didn't just kind of do this kind of cheap, quick cameo thing, like, hey, I'm that guy that you know from the other thing, bye. It's like, no, they really became characters through the rest of the movie, and I just think that was it was done so well. But yeah, now that I've talked about that, because that's kind of the big thing of this movie, I'll go back and talk about everything else with it. Like the villains, that is also so cool that we get the villains from the previous movies, and that, I think the plot line of fixing them, so when they go back to their universes, they don't die. Even though I'm kind of like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're all the ones that do die are still going to die, and all the ones that didn't die got, like, Kurt Connors already got cured, so that doesn't really matter. Sandman, having him not be Sandman anymore doesn't really change much. Like, he's still a criminal. Then if you get to Doc Ock, he's still gonna have to sacrifice himself. Like, he was moments before his redemption anyway, so it's like he's still gonna have to sacrifice himself. Like, you didn't really save him. Green Goblin, it seems like he was moments away from the glider hitting him, so he seems like, even though, he got cured, he's still gonna die. And Electro, I guess he's kind of the only one that will be able to live, but he was still Electro. He's still a criminal, so it's just like, it just seems like they didn't really save anybody, really, but it's still a cool plot line, them trying to save them. I love that they fix the inhibitor chip for Doc Ock. I think that moment is so great, because I love to see him get his redemption. It's cool to see it in Spider-Man 2, and it's cool again here to see the return, to see, Dr. Octavius, gaining his mind back. I think that is such a great moment. Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin here is amazing. I think he's better here than he was in Spider-Man 1. Like, he's so great with his performance. Like, easily the best performance of the movie is Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn, Green Goblin. That moment where he turns, where you realize he's Green Goblin again now, is done so well. And that fight in the building between him and Tom Holland Peter is amazing. Like, it is a brutal fight. And it is a moment where, like, for anybody who has complained about Tom Holland's Peter not punching, they make up for it with this scene alone. Like, it's some heavy punches, some brutal punches, and you feel them. You get the moment where he's just punching Green Goblin and he's laughing. Like, Green Goblin is laughing as he's being punched. I mean, but that whole moment is amazing. That whole fight scene is amazing. Then, of course, the death of Aunt May, and realizing that she is the Uncle Ben in Tom Holland Spider-Man story. Um, having the moment where she says, "With great power must also come great responsibility," where she says the line. That's great, and then she promptly dies. And I think that was done very well to where, she gets hit by the glider, and you're like, "Oh, she's dead." But then, uh, she gets up, and you're like, "Oh, she's not dead. She's gonna be fine. She's gonna be fine." And then she says the line, and you're like, "Oh boy, she's not gonna be fine, isn't she?" And she collapses to the ground, and she dies. And then Happy pulls up, and I love that moment, like when Happy pulls up, like even though so much of Happy and Aunt May's relationship has been kind of the butt end of a joke, it's treated really like serious here. Even earlier in the movie, it's still played as a joke. But then you get to this moment where you're like, it's just played for serious. He really loved her, and he was too late getting there. I mean, I don't know what he really would have done if he got there in time, but he pulls up and he's like, she's gone. And that is it's such a good moment where, again, it's just played seriously. They don't make it a joke. It's just, no. Their relationship was real to him, even though it's been a joke the whole time. It was real for him, and he really loved her, and it's just this great moment. And then that leads to Tobey and Andrew coming through the portals, and them talking with Tom Holland, Peter, and saying how they lost their Uncle Ben's, and that's kind of how he lost Aunt May, and they, they say that Uncle Ben also told them, with great power comes great responsibility, and they kind of bond over that. That is great. And I've so far only talked about the last half of this movie, because I think ultimately that's the best half of this movie. Not that the first half is bad. I think people have kind of like complained about the first half, like they're like, the first half isn't really that good. The setup of it isn't as good as the payoff of it, which I'll admit. Yeah, I'll agree. The back half of this movie is way better than the first half. Because you get all, it's not only you get all the cameos, but you also get some good storylines with the cameos being there. But even the setup, I think, is good. We get Daredevil. That's kind of the thing I was talking about before when I was talking about Daredevil kind of being canon now in the MCU. We get Matt Murdock. He shows up. That is an awesome moment. And like he catches the brick and he's like, "I'm a really good lawyer." I think that was cool. Even though we don't get to see him as actually be Daredevil in the movie, it was cool that he's there for that little cameo. And I think the setup is pretty good. Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, it kind of revolves around Peter, asking Doctor Strange to erase everybody's mind, but them not talking about it beforehand, and him trying to change the spell in the middle of it, and it goes haywire. Yeah, it's kind of based around them just not communicating before doing this world-changing spell. It's good enough. They kind of give a good enough explanation of, Doctor Strange kind of forgets he's a kid sometimes, and Peter, since being a kid, he's kind of not really understanding that he should let Doctor Strange just do his thing, and also doesn't really realize that this is a big, drastic thing that he should have tried some other stuff, like talking to the MIT lady first. So that's a good enough explanation. I understand the criticisms of it, but I'm kind of like, all right, whatever. It works good enough. But yeah, even though it's not as good as, the first half is not as good as the back half where you really get into the, trying to fix the villains and then them turning on him and you get Tobey and Andrew. The first half is still pretty good. But we'll talk about the ending now. This is kind of a mini review I'm doing of it. I realized at this point. I didn't do a review because I recorded a review of it, and then my hard drive died, and I lost the footage of the review, so this is kind of me making up for that and doing my review here. But I'll talk about the ending of the movie, where Peter decides he's going to erase everybody's mind, erase his identity of Peter Parker from everybody's mind, make everybody forget about Peter Parker, so, all of the people who knew Peter Parker from all the different universes will go back, because now there isn't a Peter Parker in this universe. So everybody forgets who Peter Parker is. There's some kind of vagueness about how the spell works, like, everybody forgets who he is, but does that also include video footage? I guess it does, because mysterious footage probably doesn't exist now. The footage of him revealing Peter Parker's identity, and so that probably doesn't exist, but then also MJ has the Black Dahlia necklace, which Peter gave her, so how does that make sense? And then also, it's like, so he has a social security number and a birth certificate, like, the government knows who he is, but nobody else does. It's just kind of, it's vague how it actually works, but I think, without thinking about it too much, I think it's a really good ending to the, this trilogy, and sets up some really cool stuff for the next trilogy, for what's next for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, now that he has a clean slate, and he has to start all over. He makes this new suit, which I think looks amazing. I think it's one of the best live-action Spider-Man suits ever. I just think it looks great. Definitely, like, pulled right out of a comic book. So I think it looks amazing. And so, yeah, I'm definitely excited for this next trilogy they're going to do with him. And maybe we'll get, like, Gwen Stacy or Harry Osborn. I guess we can't really get Harry Osborn because technically, Norman Osborn said that there's no Oscorp, there's no Harry Osborn. So I guess you can't really have Harry, but maybe we could get a Gwen Stacy or something. I don't know. That would be interesting. And yeah, this movie's great. I mean, come on. It brings together 3 Spider-Man franchises together into one film. It's definitely like a love letter to Spider-Man fans, and it's something that is just like, for somebody like me who grew up watching Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, to see them return, to see their villains return also, it's amazing. To see Jamie Foxx kind of get redemption, get a second try as Electro, because he, Amazing Spider-Man 2 isn't that great of a film, and he doesn't do that great of a job as Electro in that film, so it's cool that we kind of get him here, he gets a little bit of redemption at playing a second chance as playing Electro, so, and I think he's really good in this movie, so, yeah, overall, easily S tier, it's kind of along the same lines as Endgame. It's like, yeah, I know I always say it easily goes in this tier, but this one easily goes in this tier. It is awesome. It just is the culmination of all these years of Spider-Man stories, and it puts MCU Spider-Man at a really interesting spot to tell, the next trilogy of stories, so very excited to see where they're going to take this character next. And this film is great. But anyway, though, that finishes off my MCU tier list of the MCU projects up till this point. So please comment below your thoughts on my tier list, and maybe give like a ranking of the Phase 4 MCU films. And remember to give this video a like, subscribing to the channel, and maybe check out some of my other videos. And with that said, that's a wrap.